Wolverhampton, where a trial has just wrapped up over the murder of a 15-year-old boy.
15-year-old boy.
We ain't going BZ!
It's fucking blatant. Triz gang most hated pagan.
There's a million ways to die. One of them's getting shot by me.
Now, Wolverhampton is a city and metropolitan borough in the West Midlands. More specifically, however, it's located around 12 miles northwest of Birmingham. In a 2023 crime report, Wolverhampton was actually ranked as one of the most dangerous cities in the West Midlands. In 2023, the crime rate in Wolverhampton was around 129 crimes per 1,000 people. This then comparing poorly in comparison to the West Midlands as a whole, which has a crime rate of around 118 crimes per 1,000 people. As of a 2021 census, the population of Wolverhampton was around 260,000 residents living in and around Wolverhampton, this being a 5% increase since 2011, in which the population was around 250,000. Now, what a lot of the people that are currently living in and around Wolverhampton are unaware of is the long-running gang war that has been playing out within the streets of Wolverhampton, claiming the lives of multiple people that were both involved and not involved. As a result of the gang feud, it then led to broad daylight stabbings and shootings occurring in Wolverhampton's busiest areas, this being the gang war between BG and Triz. As a quick note before this video begins, a lot of information on Wolverhampton beef is unknown unless you live in and around Wolverhampton, which I do not. So if I do miss something to do with the beef, feel free to comment it down below. But without further ado, enjoy the video.
My ting, altering a whole up block to a dubstep. That's my mum where's from right
now. The first gang I'll be discussing is that of BG, or BGD, this being a gang based around the WV2 postcode within Wolverhampton. Originally, the BG gang was based around the Blakenhall estate. However, this estate has since been demolished, leading to the gang moving their territory, although the gang is still based around the WV2 postcode, more specifically the Parkfield area. The name BG is believed to be an acronym for Black Gang, which is something often mentioned by BG's most well-known rapper, that being Mloose, who previously went by Muller. Mloose began dropping music around 2016, but would only see little success until around 2020 and 2021, when his music began to gain attention due to how disrespectful some of the things he was saying were. Now, upon listening to Mloose's music, you can often hear him dissing rival gangs, the most prominent of these being a gang referred to as V3 or Triz, although the BG gang has beef with nearly all of the surrounding gangs within Wolverhampton, beefing EBG from Eastfield, GB from Glentworth, and finally Triz or V3, which was based only one street away from BG's territory.
It's fucking blatant. Triz gang most hated pagan.
The Triz crew is a gang predominantly based around Merridale and other estates. The gang is actually only a street away from the rival BG gang, Triz being based on the WV3 postcode. More simply, Triz goes by V3, this being a reference to the postcode taken up by the street gang, that being WV3. The Triz gang is affiliated with nearby GB or Glentworth Boys, which is another gang involved in this war, GB being based around WV6. Triz has a rivalry with BG or Black Gang from WV2, as well as Firetown from the Heathtown estate. So for simplicity's sake, BG or Black Gang has beef with Triz, EBG from Eastfield, and GB or Glentworth Boys, whilst the BG gang is affiliated with Firetown and AR from Birmingham. To make things simple, however, I'll only really be talking about the long-standing beef between BG and Triz, as well as other affiliated gangs. Now, you may be confused as to how teenagers from different areas of Wolverhampton have come to beef each other, thus resulting in brutal stabbings and shootings occurring in the streets of Wolverhampton. Now, originally the gangs that had a rivalry within Wolverhampton would be that of Firetown, better known at the time as Heathtown, and a rival gang from the Pendeford area, WV8, this gang being known as the Pendeford Crew. It's believed that this beef would kick off other rivalries within Wolverhampton, with an early incident occurring between the two gangs in 2008, when a Firetown member would brutally stab an associate of the Pendeford Crew, killing him and sparking more deadly attacks within the streets of Wolverhampton. On the 24th of August 2008, an alleged associate of the Pendeford crew, known as Marlon Morris, would travel from Pendeford to Wolverhampton city centre for a night out with friends. It's believed he was with another Pendeford crew member who was known under the street name Shredder. Shredder actually made news headlines in 2017 after he accidentally shot himself in the groin, resulting in his testicle being removed. This incident then led to the eventual arrest of Shredder, who was charged with gun possession. Anyways, both Marlon Morris, Shredder, and a few other friends traveled to Wolverhampton city centre Center on the evening of the 24th of August 2008. During the night, a rival from the Firetown gang known as Jamie Price would notice the group. It's known that Jamie Price sought out the members as Shredder had supposedly attacked a Firetown member in the days prior. Jamie Price would single out Marlon Morris, chasing him for a few minutes before he caught up, and launched an attack on Marlon Morris. Marlon was stabbed around 4 times in this attack, with one of the strikes piercing his heart. Marlon's friends quickly called for emergency services, and upon arrival Marlon was rushed to hospital, but would sadly be pronounced dead hours later, with Jamie Price then going on the run. However, despite his attempts of evading the law, he was quickly arrested and charged for the murder. And in 2010, Jamie Price, the son of English music producer Goldie, was found guilty and given life for the murder. Rest in peace, Marlon Morris. Now, it's not really known what occurred between the gangs following the death of Marlon Morris. What is known, however, is that around the mid-2010s, new gangs became a lot more prominent within Wolverhampton, example being both Triz and BG, or Black Gang, who have both had a rivalry since around the mid-2010s when both gangs emerged. However, during this time BG didn't really focus their beef toward Triz, but instead rival EBG, which was a gang based around Eastfield, as well as GB. Around 2015 and 2016, a younger BG member started to get active within the streets of Wolverhampton, supposedly becoming very feared very quickly, this being Muller, who was quick to start releasing music. It's rumored that around this time during the early days of the beef, rival Triz members would stab Muller's dad. However, this hasn't been proven. This incident then being something often referenced in tracks released by Triz members, as well as EB members from Eastfield. Speaking of music, it would be around 2016 and the start of 2017 that Muller would begin to drop tracks on YouTube. These songs included 2 Degrees in August 2016, this being followed by the track titled Reverse in September 2016. During the start of his music career, he didn't actually gain much attention within the underground UK drill scene, although this would all change around 2021, following a criminal behavior order that was put in place to stop Muller from inciting violence, as well as a prison sentence. He returned to the drill scene in 2020 and would become extremely well known for his rude bars and extremely cold beat selection. One of the earliest incidents reported between both the Triz gang and the BG gang would occur at the beginning of 2018, when members of BG would travel onto Triz territory and noticed a group of Triz gang members. It's then believed that a fight ensued between the groups of members. During this brawl, 2 members of the Triz gang would be stabbed multiple times by the group of BG members. A 14-year-old alleged Triz member sustained wounds to the stomach as a result of the attack, and was actually in critical condition, but luckily went on to make a recovery. A separate 15-year-old alleged Triz member sustained wounds to both his leg and hand, but was discharged from hospital hours later, with both youths luckily surviving. It's believed that around the time that this incident occurred, a member associated with the Triz gang, known by the street name KSav, would actually swap sides and began to roll with BG members, dissing his old friends and other gangs that BG had a rivalry with, which is crazy as previously in June 2017, KSav had appeared in Triz music videos. For example, in the Postcode King's Hood Talk, KSav could be seen wearing a silver mask and heard disrespecting his rivals. Anyways, after KSav would join the BG gang, he would begin to rap alongside Muller, who was making noise in the underground Wolverhampton drill scene. Sadly, however, due to the fact that he had swapped to his rival's gang, his old friends began to watch him and even knew where he lived. On the 22nd of February 2018, KSav and his dad would be driving in Meredale when a rival Triz member noticed them. The Triz member was actually one of KSav's closest friends when he was a Triz gang member. But due to the fact he had switched sides, however, the Triz member wouldn't take too kindly to seeing KSav, with it even being alleged that the Triz member went on to produce an axe and threaten KSav, who was with his dad. Luckily, KSav made it out of this situation unharmed. However, sadly, only months later, on the 29th of May 2018, he would fall victim to a brutal attack carried out by that same Triz gang member, who he had got into a confrontation with whilst he was with his dad. On the 29th of May 2018, at around 3 p.m., a brawl between both BG members and Triz members broke out in Wolverhampton city centre. This entire incident was recorded by a shocked bystander and saw members involved retrieving machetes and chasing one another. This incident subsequently resulting in get-back attacks occurring that seemingly led to the death of KSav. Around 2 hours following this incident, KSav was walking down a road in BG territory when 2 rival Triz members approached him. KSav began to run with the Triz members, then allegedly firing a shotgun off in his direction. Luckily, KSav managed to get away from the armed attackers, although sadly later that day he would be attacked once again in a shocking and brutal attack. A few hours later, 15-year-old KSav would be walking down Langley Road in Mary Hill, which was Triz territory. Anyways, 4 rival Triz members noticed KSav, who was sitting in a taxi. A vicious attack was then launched on KSav, in which he was dragged out of the taxi and was stabbed around 40 times by his old friends. friends. The attackers quickly fled with police arriving on the scene moments later. Sadly, KSav was pronounced dead on the scene, with a murder investigation being launched. Around 9 people were arrested in the weeks following KSav's death. However, they would later be released under investigation, and in 2019, 3 men went on to be arrested for KSav's murder, with one of them being KSav's old friend from the Triz gang. A year following the arrests of the 3 Triz members, another man was arrested, and in the end, 3 of the gang members were given life with a minimum of 18 years, whilst the final man was given 17 years. Rest in peace, Keelan Wilson or KSav. Following the death of KSav, rivals to the BG gang began to heavily mock the incident within songs. In a track released in 2018 by an EB member known as E9 and Maisky from Moscow 17, they would diss KSav, in which they rapped, "KSav got slapped at and splashed up in the same day. He was destined death." E9 then also referenced the stabbing of Muller's dad. Muller would actually hear this diss towards KSav and replied in his own song, in which he rapped, "About EB to Moscow, oh." Claps showed Maisky the whap. He went all quiet, he weren't involved. If anything, this just showed that the beef had escalated from the streets and was now being documented within rude UK drill songs uploaded by members on each side. Sadly, however, only a few months following the death of KSav, GB members allied with Triz would ride out onto rival Park Village territory, home to the 10 Side gang, which was allied with EB, and went on to commit a shooting, killing a man. On the 20th of July 2018, 4 members alleged to be from the GB gang armed themselves with guns and used a stolen vehicle, in which they drove from their block onto rival Park Village territory, home to the PV-10 Side gang. The 4 GB members noticed Dwaine Haughton, who was sitting in the passenger seat of a car whilst his cousin was driving. The car driven by the GB members pulled up alongside the passenger window and began firing into the car. Dwaine Haughton sustained wounds to his head and shoulders as a result of the shooting and was rushed to hospital by his cousin. Sadly, however, during the early hours of the next morning, Dwaine was pronounced dead in hospital, with a murder investigation being launched. All 4 of the attackers were arrested and charged for Dwaine's murder. The 4 members were found guilty and given life in prison, 2 members being given 28 years, whilst the other 2 were given 15 years. The 4 defendants were further charged and found guilty of possession of a firearm and ammunition with intent to endanger life. It's believed that whilst the trial was taking place, 2 of the defendants were given a further 4 years, as they were connected to a deadly stabbing that occurred in the months before. Rest in peace, Dwaine Haughton. It's rumored that following the killing of Dwaine, Park Village gang members were seeking retaliation, and in May 2019 they rode out onto GB territory, shooting a 16-year-old member in the head. This 16-year-old went by the street name SA. The shooters fled quickly, and SA was rushed to hospital, luckily making a recovery. The teenage shooters were arrested shortly after the shooting, although I couldn't find if they were sentenced or not. In the months following Dwaine Haughton's death, the underground UK drill music scene in Wolverhampton was actually gaining attention. Muller from BG was the most prominent of Wolverhampton rappers around this time, dropping the song Do It in November 2018. This currently sitting on around 130,000 views. However, he wouldn't stop there, and around a month later, Muller dropped the highly disrespectful track titled Return to Sender with Boogs. This song featuring multiple disses toward Triz, and whilst it looked as if Muller could make a name for himself in the UK drill scene, he was still knee-deep in the gang life, with a video from the time even emerging showing Muller chasing a rival EB member, this being an incident he later rapped about. In 2019, however, he ended up serving time for a crime he would commit, and would be forced to quit music as a result of this. On the 15th of February 2019, Muller from BG and a Firetown member known as Shanky would ride out onto rivals with 2 knives, one being a foot-long machete. Police noticed the car and stopped it in the Heathtown area of Wolverhampton. Muller was arrested on the scene whilst Shanky ran from the car. Later, Shanky was arrested. Both members were found guilty of possessing a bladed article. Muller was sentenced to 15 months, plus an additional 3 months for breaching a community order. On top of this, Muller was given a 5-year criminal behavior order. This banned him from meeting in public with certain associates, having more than one mobile phone, inciting violence through music videos, and finally visiting certain parts of Wolverhampton, whilst Shanky from Firetown was jailed for 9 months. It's rumored that upon Muller's release from prison, he would begin to go by a new name, this being Mloose. Following Mloose's release from jail, around 2020 he began to get straight back into the music scene. He released Real as Hell at the start of 2021, which gained loads of attention, currently sitting on 2.5 million views, this being extremely successful for an underground UK drill rapper. Members from the Triz gang also began to release music. In February 2021, JShmoke from Triz released his track titled GBG, or Get Back Gang. Within the lyrics of this song, JShmoke would even allude to the fact that Triz had allegedly stabbed 4 rivals in a 1-month time gap.
Them piss coverage down 4 in a month. They're pissed. I just grab a Zeno from Big Bro Crash.
And whilst it looked as if JShmoke could really make waves in the UK drill scene, under 2 months following the release of this GBG track, he would accidentally shoot his girlfriend, leading to him being arrested and charged. On the 2nd of April 2021, JShmoke from the Triz gang would have a shotgun delivered to his mother's home by an unknown 17-year-old. JShmoke would supposedly take the shotgun inside, whilst his girlfriend was also inside, and would begin to test it and play with it. JShmoke then took a hammer and hit the shotgun, which caused it to shoot. JShmoke's girlfriend was shot in the stomach by the shotgun. JShmoke then fled the scene, leaving his girlfriend to call for emergency services, where she was rushed to hospital with a collapsed lung. Originally, she was in critical condition. However, she luckily survived the attack, going on to make a recovery. It's believed JShmoke then gave a 17-year-old the evidence and ordered him to dispose of it. However, JShmoke was then arrested and charged for the shooting, and in the end, he was found guilty and sentenced to 10 years for the shooting. This entire incident was later referenced in Mloose's most recent song, Wow, in which he rapped,
Let me see one thing as well. Don't make no freestyles in jail if the only person you shot is your girl. When you laugh back.
Now, a lot of incidents occurred between both the Triz gang and the BG gang following this. I won't really be speculating on them, as they aren't confirmed and are mostly just rumors. Mloose continued to drop music, releasing A Million Ways in June 2021, this then being followed up by his HB freestyle in July 2021. It was actually this HB freestyle that turned a lot of people's heads, with commenters beginning to notice his hard wordplay and evil lyrics. This really made him stand out from other UK drill rappers. Mloose was making serious noise within the streets around this time. At the start of 2022, he released Line and Bine, which also gained a lot of attention, currently sitting on around 300,000 views. Whilst he was consistent in 2022, he wouldn't be as consistent in 2023, only releasing one song, this most likely being due to the fact that he is still involved in the street life. Now, track titled Wow, which has done decent numbers for a UK drill artist, currently sitting on 100,000 views. However, Mloose isn't the only one releasing UK drill tracks, and on the Triz side of the beef, JShmoke and OBM released the song titled Triz Story around 2 weeks ago. Now, since the death of Rellz, no other incidents have really occurred within the streets. If something does happen, however, it doesn't really reach the news, so I won't mention them. If you have learned anything from this video, however, make sure that it is to stay out of the streets, as this road lifestyle that you see these rappers living often only leads to jail or death. Oftentimes, these rappers have lost most of the people around them to the roads, and have to live the harsh reality of constantly being cautious, this furthering the point that this life is not worth it. Thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe.